Hey everyone, let's do this week's recap. And this week was, as usual, with some winners, with some losers, with some break evens. I will start with one winner and then go through other pairs, and we'll try to comment as much as possible on what happened, show you my real-time notes I made while observing the market, and we will discuss context and so on. So on EuroGBP, we had pretty clear and pretty simple context. I mean, as much as it could be simple. So we were just working with this huge weekly expansion, huge weekly impulse, and the price made a break, created a pullback, started to build inside structure, started to break inside structure, and mitigated something on the inside structure basis on the weekly. So overall, looking for the bullish moves. On daily, the price recently, it's even more logical maybe to look at 3 days. Yeah, so on 3 days we had, let me check if it was inside. So yeah, technically we can even, no, it was not a break. So on 3 days we have something like on weekly. On 2 days we technically broke this low, but there was this unmitigated zone right below it, and the price reached it, mitigated it, and started a move up. So on daily it looks like this. We have an up move followed by a break, technical breakdown, but not confident. So we realized that this is more like a one move, and because of that, because of this immediate stoppage and coming back into the range, we can consider it as a usual absorption, as a liquidity grab, and the market started to build up this inside structure again. So we have some reaction from a zone, initial breaks, reaccumulation, and the market that started to go up. On 4 hours perspective, we had this. We just had a break, just an average quality break to the upside. And so let me rewind the price here. And the price mitigated the zone and started already building up inside structure. So we can go to, how is it possible that it's not available? It's basically some kind of mistake, I think. Yeah, strange. Okay, so the price mitigated this 4 hour zone and started to go upwards, building some inside structure from 15 minutes. I don't remember if it will hold this one. Yeah, and basically what it did then, so let me rewind further like this. We started to build inside structure of a reaction from a 4 hour structural zone and inside the inside structure from 3 days, from daily, and so on. On 15 minutes, we created this inside structure break and started to build up structure targeting this, and of course probably higher targets as well. So overall keeping bullish bias. And at this point, so this was the start of my session approximately, and what we had is this big move after Sydney closed, and before New York was opened. So basically this is the open on New York. The entry time is the open on of New York, and we started to build these highs. So at this point, to be honest, I was looking at this zone, but because the price never wanted to reach it, so just building these highs in a really bullish, already moving bullish, in a bullish context, I decided to give it a try here on a break of the highs. So we also see that we mitigated this bigger root of the move. So we just didn't mitigate the very last zone, but we don't need to do it. And so on this candle, this was an entry, if I remember correctly. This very candle, just looking to break these highs, because if you have a bullish context and you have like a logical target, the price, if it will break it, it will be just impulsively very often. So this was an entry, and as you can see, this entry could be much better from inside structure perspective, because let's see what the price will do then. So the price created this inside structure break. Actually, no, sorry. So what we had there is a structural break to the upside. So we broke this range in 1 minute and created this root of the move with unmitigated zones here. But what's interesting, this main volume candle was mitigated by this zone, by this move, and then this move got mitigated before the actual move to the upside. So this was a decent entry with a much better stop loss protection, like here or here. And so my target would be reached more confident and more fast. But this was my entry. I didn't want to miss this move because this pullback could never happen basically, and I just wanted to take a chance. So at this point I moved stop loss to 0.5, and then after this basically, even before that happened, the entry was moved to break even, and then I just managed it like this. So was not always looking at the chart, but then looked here. So this was the news release, and at this point I wrote this news against a main structure, so expect this more like reaccumulation. And definitely, if you see this chart and ask yourself what the price is doing, the price is moving right now bullishly inside the bullish context, like we described before, created this small reaccumulation, tried to break this high, and then created one more push to the downside. As I said many times before, when you have news and the first reaction from the news is against the main bias, against the higher time frame structure, usually it means is that it's just a liquidity grab, because news themselves does not change usually the bias. They does not break anything important usually again. And so I was okay with considering this as a liquidity grab and continued to manage the trade. So this was like a time before New York will open, so some range price action was expected, and the price kept pushing higher like this, and at this point looking good for full take profit, however expecting more accumulation now. So after this break, of course, what we have here is just a bullish market that is meeting some targets from high time frames, and we are moving good to the full take profit. However, this is what happened then. So the price almost reached this full 7 RR profit and started to range, just to range with this price action. And at this point, because we had already 2 cycles of reaccumulation and New York will soon open, so basically from a technical standpoint I had no reasons to close the trade, so statistically I can still reach the target, but it was a bit emotional decision. At 6.5 R I just decided that I expected deeper mitigations before New York, so closed 6.5, which is basically a weakness based on my management style. Yeah, because my plan was to hold to fixed 7 RR. But yeah, I was looking at price and just didn't manage to do it, but the price eventually went up and reached my full target. And then, by the way, you see, it went straight down during New York. So creating this breaks to the downside, creating redistributions and moving higher. The reason for this could be just some mitigations of maybe inside structure from 4 hours. So I don't know how the next week will open and what it will do, but after this pullback we now expect the liquidations of this high. So still very bullish for Euro GBP. So this was this trade. Now let's move to like emotional loser. So what we have here is my old friend CHF which I consider a bit overextended from weekly. But now, of course, after this reaccumulation, we just expect this to be taken out. However, looking at daily, what I noticed, so this was this week, what I noticed is some kind of a slowdown of the move. We also broke these highs, and so I expected at least some kind of pullbacks on lower time frames. And on lower time frames, we have these just huge moves on 4 hours, and again slowing of price. Same on 1 hour, we just have this structural overextension, and the impulses like began slower and slower, and so as always I decided to then maybe we can have some pullback happening. And basically I was looking at price, looking at these breaks, and by the way, you see if you follow the main bias how much better entries you can get. So basically if you just follow longs, you will have a lot of possibilities for longs on lower time frames, but I don't know, this HFGPY, so basically it was a top calling and kind of revenge trade, because like I just wanted to catch some pullback. You know, this is a time where you're just looking at this, you are looking at this and you're thinking, okay, I mean at this point we need to liquidate at least these lows or like that lows. So basically it's an illusional way of looking on the price. It's much easier to follow the mitigations, to follow the move that is actually happening. But in this case, so yeah, it was a real bad trade. And as always, so what I did there is just waited for some move to the downside. Again, it's just a classical reaccumulation, so you are just breaking down in an uptrend. Had this big stop loss, it was liquidated. And by the way, the time of the session is poor as well. It's like after London opens but before New York opens and so on. I was stopped out and then the move started. But again, the move started like at this point I would be break even, so it would take me at break even. And even with these kind of moves, it never reached my take profit. So it just slowly turned to the upside and provided some upside potential. So yeah, really bad trade, just a loser. Now let's discuss the week on USD GPY. So again, the same bias from weekly as from previous weeks. So we are in a reaccumulation model in an overall bullish context from USD GPY, just mitigated the second zone and already started a move down, a move up. So overall, this market right now tells us that it wants in some way to go and liquidate these highs. So this is from weekly. On daily, we had down moving market, break into the upside with this poor quality impulse. So by the way, because of this, we expected some movement to the downside, mitigated something here and started to move up based on inside structure or structural delivery from the lower time frames. And as you can see on lower time frames, we have like really nice structural build-ups with these mitigations, continuations higher, and this was the Monday. So Monday provided an initial move up like this with not like really perfect structure or perfect impulse, but on 2 hours, on 1 hour, it looked like quite nice. And so I decided to work with this range. So basically we have this clear move, clear zone in an overall bullish market. So looking to take it higher from here or from here. But coming into the session, so I guess I should have had some notes there. But I don't have them here. But basically it's interesting. I remember I took some notes there. Oh, okay, it's here. So what I wrote here at this time, so basically explained why I didn't look at this. So we had one more clear shift on 15 minutes coming into London session. So this is already Tuesday, yeah. But what I wrote here is because of the break of structure after the break on 4 hours, would long only from this zone if we will have more internal shifts. Otherwise, expect bearishness to continue into deeper zones. And yes, definitely at this point we already broke this high, and we can expect a bit of bearishness. Again, I don't want to trade it, but I don't want to trade longs specifically with this kind of market. So if you imagine that this market would stop here and started to build some structure to the upside, at this point the situation would be different. So the zone will be holding and it will be possible to follow it. However, at this point there was nothing like this. I put up some possible entries even to the short side, so following this overall bearish movement. And by the way, you see how interestingly this wave developed. So holding the structure overall. So if you are someone that wants to trade like more against the main bias, you had a lot of possibilities to enter what you are, if you are like following the price itself, what it is doing, even if it's a bit against the overall bias. But I didn't watch the price at that moment, so just was looking for breaking to the downside. And yes, eventually the price reached the zone on 1 hour. So this zone, at this point I was looking to take the price to the upside. And let's see what happens. Yeah, and we have a reaction. Okay, so we have a reaction from a zone from 15 minutes. And now yeah, and now basically we have a lot of confluences. This is an inside structure break on 15 minutes, but happy to take it. So it's maybe something on 10 minutes. Yeah, like clear zone, clear entries, and yeah, a lot of confluences already have a reaction. So that's why I decided to find some entries. Okay, why the entry is there? Okay. Yeah, so basically it was a bit late entry. Yeah. So again, remember we have 4 hours bullish, 1 hour really bullish and clear, liquidated some intermediate lows, tapped into the main zone, started a reaction on 15 minutes, on 10 minutes, tapped into the zone, started a reaction on 1 minute. And what's interesting, this pattern, it will appear a lot in EURUSD as well. So when you have a break, then some intermediate low, and then a break into the main zone, then continuation. So at this point, when I saw the price moving up, though I was a bit late, decided to enter here and follow the management. So at this point, move to 0.5, and basically here or here move to break even. The problem with this entry is that it's quite late, so the New York will be soon closed, and I'm risking with holding a trade, basically like on rollover, and then Asia moves can liquidate it all. And yeah, basically that's what happened. I had a break even there, and then the price. So this was, let's just skip it a bit. This was Asian time. and yeah, and then the price during Asia just started push up, created this range, and pushed up even more before London opens, and I reached the target right now or a bit later, but I was taken out at the break even, and this is the time I came to the market. So this is my note, is that we are expecting reaccumulation. So let's look at 15 minutes. So on 15 minutes we created a break, and on 1 minute we created consecutive structural shifts. So at this point, expecting reaccumulation. I was not looking to trade it, just was observing the market, and yes, reaccumulation happened. Now at this point, want deeper reaccumulations, probably because of just of these moves on 5 minutes, on Asian sessions, and because usually, even if we want to go higher on London, we can make some counter moves, and of course we have these deeper zones that are waiting. So I was just expecting a bit deeper move. Happened. So at this point, okay, so at this point only fractal entries would be possible to the upside, probably. Yeah. So at this point, maybe I was even looking for some entries, but there was nothing for me. So I just missed it all. And let's just follow the price. Again, you see how the market holds the structure, how it follows the overall bias. So this was the next point. Okay, yeah, so valid, however, lower volume session, plus overextension structurally, and more reaccumulation needed. So this was a valid entry. You see, there was a zone, there was a confirmation, but I didn't want to enter because I understood that I already missed this move basically from here, and just expected some downside from there, which happened but a bit later. Now expecting further downside into 15 minutes zone. Yeah, definitely after this move we can expect some downside, and at this point do not expect this zone to hold, very aggressive coming in. And yeah, basically not only that, we had this 2 hours break. So this all happened after the break on 2 hours, and we have pretty logical zones on 2 hours to target. So when you have your, but this was a valid 15-minute zone, you see this one, but you see how the price comes into the zone. It comes like really fast, really bearish. So does it make sense to look at this point for longs? And again, we know that if the market will want to go long, it will probably accumulate for some time and build the structure. And usually later entries will provide even better setups from the standpoint of risk to reward, because then you can use this newly built structure, immediate structure, for making your stop losses smaller, and so reaching your target a bit faster. And at this point, what can we expect from the market? Basically, our expectation on this time frame is just to continue lower or create redistributions and then continue lower to the downside. So you either need to wait or just let the zone run, and indeed the price failed to hold the zone and reach this zone. So at this point I probably didn't follow the market, don't remember it, but we had a reaction. So from this reaccumulation, so this is the same pattern that we have on weekly. Remember, on weekly on this pair we have this exact pattern on weekly. So it has a reaction. By the way, let's check if there was an entry. Yeah, the entry was possible. So how the price moved. Okay, bullish from here. So if you just enter from here, but I would not enter. Bullish from this zone, then it would be a stop out, and then creation of this inside structure, and then just basically nothing. So either you are entering on some buy stops or from inside structure, but the reaction was really fast and it would be hard to catch something for me there. And we continue to work with the same bias. So these next two were just forward tested. What was the reasoning for this forward test? So I was just looking at the market and basically even placed the trades, this forward test even afterwards. But what I was looking here at is this inside structure, and I was thinking if the market can show some reaction after liquidation of these lows and tapping into the zone on inside structure basis. And yeah, basically the market went to the upside more. So something like this. But then these entries basically, for me, they didn't give anything interesting. So what we have here, mitigated zones should go lower because they didn't hold unmitigated zones. So probably I was looking for something here and expecting the price to go lower since we didn't hold this zone. But by the way, it never happened. Price went higher. Yeah, at this point I was expecting redistribution, or at least need more to build up before moving higher. So because the price stopped, I was looking, like, just looking how the market will develop. So again, at this point the price was redistributing, but then after these moves, the redistribution idea based on the higher time frame bullish context started to fail. So at this point, again, these are just forward tested trades, they were not taken. And after this break, expecting more upside from here cause of redistribution idea failed, some inside structure from higher time frame zone holding, but these trades just, again, no, the session was okay, but this trade just failed. Again, not trades, just forward tested. And the price went even lower into a newly created and refined 1 hour zone. 1 hour zones. And what's interesting there is that this 1 hour zone had a really nice refinement from 5 minutes, you see, so this 1 hour zone full. Yeah, and on 5 minutes we had this really interesting, you see, this one full body candle with imbalance, and I was looking to play from it with a buy limit. And here I wrote this at this point, expecting to take out these lows into 1 hour zone and then look for continuation from there. So again, it's just logical to expect that the lows created, so this was probably some news, and usually these lows created by news, they become liquidated, especially if you have this really logical zone to reach during the session. And so I was really not buying into these areas. And yes, definitely we liquidated it and mitigated the zone there, even mitigating the refined zone. At this point, because the refinement from 1 hour was so small, I was okay with entering with a buy limit. So I just placed a buy limit there, and basically I remember that this one missed, so this one didn't fill me in because of the spread. And at this point we started to build this inside structure, basically after the tap into the zone. And I was just looking at this and thinking to myself, okay, we mitigated this, we stepped into the higher volume session, and we can just go from here. So GPY pairs during previous weeks, they were just like really explosive and impulsive, and I was looking to take this trade to 7R, and yeah, I took it by market order, but what it did is just took me out and actually entering on my buy limit order, and going up from there. So at this point I probably move to 0.5, and at this point move to break even. Okay, didn't expect too much from this trade because we are approaching the rollover, the Asian session, so just let it run to the target or to the break even. This trade ran to 3R and then started to fall to break even, like that. Yeah. So what happened next? What happened next? So we basically, on the next day, so this was the morning of the next day, we created this 30-minute break after creating inside structure and some bearish trend on 30-minute, some local bearish trend. And this is where things are really interesting if we compare this zone, this situation, and this one. So from the technical standpoint, we basically have the same situation. So here we have a break of structure and tap into a zone, and here we have we are working from this break, but the only difference is that we have a break, and now we came here to this zone, which is perfectly fine and basically the same scenario because we understand that this is just a reaccumulation. But if we have an idea that the price will go from here, the big difference between these two setups is what's happening on the lower time frames. Because if you see 30 minutes, then so this is my entry for longs, and this is my entry for longs. You see the difference? 30 minutes are making move down at this point, and here 30 minutes already made a move up. On 15 minutes it's just on 10 minutes it's a structural move to the upside. Also here on 30 minutes we had this pattern of reaccumulation. As you can see, you have a break, and then one move to the zone with a break of inside structure. But here instead we had basically a break with a lot of inside structure happening on 15 minutes and so on, and then one more break and one more break to the downside. So you see how much more bearishness on lower time frames we have that goes against our idea. So this is how you need to think, this is how you need to look at the market and compare what's happening and what pattern is occurring on the market. But because of because of just the fact of reaccumulation on 1 hour, I was still fine with looking at these longs with the overall bias. And by the way, again, oh yeah, I just wanted to tell that we had the zones here, but at this point we had the same zone. So the difference is in the lower time frames that we are pretty bearish at this time, never built anything important. But I was looking to take it higher, and this is what we had on 1 minute. So just some kind of accumulation, then a break. Let me clean it up a bit. So a break, one more break, one more break, and coming back into a zone. So what I had here is just reaccumulation into a zone, liquidation of this high, low, and just entry with this confirmation, and that's all. So at this point I moved my stop loss to 0.5. At this point I moved to break even. These are my nodes. Round number acting as resistance, and so good liquidity. So this is, you see the price 134, like around it, and again this is just a resistance. So everything here is a resistance for weekend. This round number, like good selling liquidity, and usually these numbers, if they like really break it, they break with some impulses. At this point, mitigated 30-minute refined supply and showed good reaction. Overall expecting more downside into deeper daily zones, however, still have a good chance of mitigating higher zones and reaching the target. So what we had at this point of time during my trade is, of course, I could not ignore the fact that we created this 30-minute break. So this is the big difference between the previous good trade that like hit break even and then went to take profit, at this one. We have relatively clear break and really clear zones. So these are refined zones from 30 minutes. So this week, so maybe something on 1 minute, because I usually don't refine to the weeks themselves. Yeah, you see. So we have this zone, this candle as a refinement from 30 minutes, and then we have this candle, it's unmitigated part. And my target was right into this zone, so I understood that we mitigated this zone, and now we are showing some reaction. And after basically this, so this was like really deep, and it was starting to look like this trade will not work. Almost hit my break even, and then came back to hit this zone and created one more inside structure. Yeah, so this was just an example of confirmation. If you were looking to take it to the bearish side, it took me out at break even and continued to the downside with this 30-minute bias and so on, moving pretty hard, not like really clear move, but reached the target. Like again, this short trade is just an example. This was my trade, this was my break even, the trend to 5R basically. Yeah, and that's what was all for USD JPY this week. What it did is probably absorbed these lows and now created this move into the next week, so confirming the overall bullish bias. And it's possible to look for buys from this zone. Again, will not don't know how it will go next week. It could be as well a redistribution, but you need to check these ideas on lower time frames if you want. If you don't want, you then can just wait for deeper zones and so on, but I will come back to reanalyzing this pair a bit later. And the last pair for this week was Euro USD. Had one winner here, had like really nice missed wave that I just keep looking at, commenting at, but never find my entry. Losers and break evens as always. So the bias for Euro USD on this week was the following. Recently we created a lot of inside structure here on daily and some structural moves. So overall, as you can see, moving really bullish in this clear break. Yes, we have some possibility for bearishness to meet these zones, but overall the bias still stands as during the previous, I don't know how many weeks, the bias is still bullish overall. And we have this deeper daily zone. So this is the daily zone. We have 4 hours. And for hours we basically had this. We have this zone, and we have something deeper. And first zone was this one to look for some confirmations. On 2 hours we had this zone that we basically broke on Monday, I think. Yeah, so we broke the zone on 2 hours, but faced this 4-hour zone and started, I think, this reaction to the to the upside. I just started to build some structure, so like this, and then so this is structural moves on 5 minutes, creating these moves, mitigating, and created a really clean move. So I was not at the chart at that time, but I just pointed this for me that this place was probably like the earliest, the best place to entry, with these clear moves, clear chain of demand, just mitigation here, and you can enter like straight from the zone, waiting for this confirmation or whatsoever, waiting for inside structure confirmation, and then the price started to move up. And this is the first place where I started to observe this move. Again, remember, we are moving in a bullish daily push, basically the same push on 4 hours. And oh, interesting, I just noticed that we had basically in 4 hours we have this protected low. So yeah, this zone was pretty nice. Again, same thing as on USD/JPY. At this point, we already had some inside structure built to the bearish side. So for instance, if you imagine that from here we have a reaction and then coming back, so this entry will be much better compared to this one. However, this wave was really nice, and I just wanted to show you how it will develop. So this was a possible entry that I missed, and let's see what I wrote here. So looks like it want to take this low before as it did before. So this is probably, we need to take, oh yeah, so we have a move up, and I was thinking oh no, sorry, so this was about this. So I was just looking to follow the price, and what I did here is I expected this low to be taken out in the same pattern like here, and just after these initial pushes I wanted to see the price to go lower, and didn't want to take this entry. However, it never happened. The price just created more moving to the upside, creating this 5-minute zone. And at this point, so no notes yet, so just following the price, and a structural overextension looking for accumulation. Even if it wants to be bearish next day, 30-minute zone above provides space to move bullish, and bullish is still intact. So at this point, again, I just wanted some pullback. Okay, I just wanted some pullback, and we had a zone on 1 minute here, on 5 minutes below, on 2 minutes, like structural zones hitting it. But at this point I didn't want to take. So if the price would return here, I would take this trade, but the price continued to push up. And again, yes, this is 1 minute, but the patterns are that are the same, and the logic behind the moves are the same. So this is why it's important to look at different time frames, and if you're okay with trading lower time frames. Again, you see this low and the price just liquidates it. So the pattern is like we discussed on USD/JPY, on EURUSD here and here. So many patterns like this happen. These are examples of reaccumulations. So yeah, we had this zone. I don't know, either I didn't watch the price or I didn't want to follow it. But what we basically did is created reaccumulation, started to build inside structure, mitigating it. Oh, and at this point, I wrote already that a local distribution started, possibly. So, or in other words, a deeper pullback starting. And the reason for this is because we were mitigated like really clear zone from 30 minutes. So my expectation here was this. So, and to find entry there. And at this specific time, I expected a deeper pullback. The price pushed higher a bit and started this distribution, started to go lower. And here I was trying to find some longs and tapped in there. So what was the logic behind it? We, by the way, we mitigated some zones from these initial 5-minute pushes. So something, oh yeah, it's from 15 minutes. Yeah, so you see a reaction from here and then a refined zone from 15 minutes. Just showing a reaction. At this point, I expected the price just to continue moving. We created already some bullish movement, created some reaccumulation. However, you see the session is the evening of London, and basically almost the mid time for New York. And yeah, that's not the optimal session for me. So it was an instant loser. Yeah, the price just didn't want to do anything from there and continued. Oh yeah, so it took me out and continued to the upside, but I was not looking at the price at that moment. And you see at this point the price already like started to look like it's stuck in this range. So on 1 hour and 30 minutes it was not clear. I was still okay with following it to the upside, and this is what we had the next day. We just broke down. Okay, was taking a shot from here but never took it. I don't know, so was just looking at this zone probably and reaction to the deeper zones from 30 minutes. Okay, news. Again, I just have this notification that I'm expecting some bullish movement, but yeah, it does not matter basically. Let's just go further. And at this point we had 5-minute zone, 5-minute zone hitting, or maybe 7 minutes, something like this. Yeah, we have like this zone hitting with the overall bullish bias. Basically nothing specific from higher time frames. So working with overall bullish bias from higher time frames and these initial shifts on lower time frames. 1 minute came into the zone, started to build inside structure, starting to build more inside structure, and came back into the zone, found my confirmation there, and so I don't remember now, either this one, oh yeah, so this was a loser. At this point I didn't want to go to BE, probably move to 0.5, I don't know, but this trade recorded like a loser for me, so let it be a loser. Yeah, the price just went down into the refinements of 4-hour zone, into 4-hour zone, and so on. Expecting at this point, I wrote this, expecting up, however this will probably be taken out in accumulation. Why I wrote this? Because we basically just came into a zone, liquidated some initial lows, but does this market look like it's already moving up? Yes, the bias is bullish. I'm bullish like for many weeks already on USD, but at this specific time on my entry time frame, for me, yeah, we have these initial shifts, but basically not enough. However, at this trade, it started the reaction. At this point I decided to go break even early. The price moved a bit higher and took me out at break even. So this was just a mistake. Basically we started to break down, so this was a redistribution. I decided to take one more chance on this zone, and it was instant loser at this point. So when you have a break like this, again, you can have, some people can have a temptation, some people like me have a temptation to like enter once again, expecting this move to the upside. However, in many situations, even if you try to enter this move, like this move or even here, then you need to ask where you will put your stop loss. So when the price is falling, your stop loss will be basically here. So you need to have some zone. You can't just put stop loss here because the price can easily take you out. So you will have a big stop loss, and even if the move will happen to your side next, it will be harder, much harder to reach the target because of the risk to reward. Specifically for me, because I have a fixed risk to reward management style. And yeah, and then if we imagine that the price will go from here, and then it will create at least some kind of inside structure, and then your stop loss can be much lower. And that's why, so added a bit later. So you see, the run, I gave some time to build up, to confirm idea or invalidate fully. So for me, full invalidation would be if we close on 1 hour, on 4 hour perspective here, because don't forget, we are pretty bullish from higher time frames here. And this is what the price started to do. So we this is the approaching of New York Open. So the session time is like really optimal. We have the time to move up. And this is what the price did. Started to create this clear inside structure with nice and clear moves, and one more clear move to the upside. So at this point I decided to give it a try, since I understood that we liquidated this low, came into the zone, mitigated, and start to build up some move to the upside. So I was okay with taking it. So this was the entry. Again, don't remember, I don't have a text about moving to 0.5, so maybe it was an instant break even. Basically here break even for sure. Could easily be a redistribution from middle time frame. So I wrote it because of this context from middle time frames, from 30 minutes, because we still didn't reach the target. And basically I was a bit confused about what the price will be doing. The context from here is like, from one side is clear, but from the other side it's just in the range. But I was in a trade and was okay with keeping it. The stop loss was pretty small and the target was reachable. So it created one more impulse to the upside, like really clear, expecting reaccumulation now and then up. So at this point you see, so the further price will go from here, the more bullishness I will expect. Yeah, but I expected some reaccumulation. Now this redistribution idea basically starting to fail, because we broke these highs from maybe a bit higher time frames, like 5 minutes and so on. So still managing. This is almost New York opened, and now definitely expecting reaccumulation from here, but also overall expecting to hit full take profit. So you see, at this point I was quite confident we are close to the target, just expected some reaccumulations from this point, but I guess it never happened. Yeah, it mitigated. Yeah, it just went up to the, so it was like really nice trade. The price kept the structure basically perfectly, and yeah, allowed me to take this winner. And it continued in the same range. What I did the next day was basically exactly the same. We started to build these zones from 30 minutes, from 1 hour, so starting to build this inside zone chain and so on. So was just looking at the price there. Oh my god, so many nodes. So what we have here is an initial break to the upside. So this is the beginning of the session. I was at my place a bit earlier, so because I noticed that the last hour of Sydney tends to give this pre-London structure that tends to play out real nicely then. And so yeah, last hour on Sydney provided clean setup almost daily during this week, and not with an exception from this day, but I was not looking at this. Same pattern again, mitigating the root of 3 minutes. And what I mean by that is we have a 3-minute break of structure here, the root of the move, and on 1 minute we have initial breaks and liquidation of this low. So this is what I mean by the same pattern we discussed before, same reaccumulation. Okay, at this point I don't remember why I didn't enter like this, probably just expected some deeper mitigations. So this is the next node. Do not want to take this, a bit overextended, expect London Open to take it out. So we basically have a valid inside structure entries here, but you see a bit overextended from this move. So we have several shifts and we have this low. So I was just expecting the London to go and mitigate something deeper. So we have these 5-minute shifts and so on. Yeah, and basically this is what happened. So this is a 5-minute move, 6-minute move, mitigating the zone, unmitigated portions, and started a move up. Yeah, working with this 15-minute insights. And this is 15-minute range as well. At this point, I want to see a build up, at least with inside structure. Probably didn't want to wait for it then, just decided to enter there. It was an instant loser. Here again, not trying to catch, probably going for Asian low. So at this point I expected the bearishness to continue into the Asian lows if it wants to, but it stopped and created a move to the upside. And basically this was an entry from inside structure zones. So yeah, this was like I put this note, but you see, because of how the price behaved there, I gave it one more try. The price showed a reaction. At this point went to 0.5. At this point went to break even and started to follow the market. So at this point, you see, I'm expecting follow through with reaccumulations as always. So a really nice push, broke the high. So these ideas were invalidated for me at this point that we are going for these Asian lows. And I was expecting some move up. So what is this? Main idea now is expecting further downside until New York. Red news in 3 hours, so probably will go down before them, sweep London open low, Asian lows, and then either accumulate and go higher or higher right away. So like again, 50-50. Yeah, but expecting some reaccumulations. At this point, when we were approaching low, I was expecting that this low will be breaking. Of course, I wanted the price to continue higher, but at this point, too far too quick, expecting break even and then lower to Asian low at least. So yeah, at this point I came back to this bias I had before, yeah, but it never took me out, continued to move higher, and then I wrote this. So I expect this trade to work out only if we will take out these highs, but otherwise I will expect a longer sideways movement or liquidations of these lows I told before. And the price, so if after this the price managed to break the highs, it will be a much better perspective for the trade overall. But price never managed to do it. It just went into this range, just doing nothing. You see, stuck in a range. New York open soon, so the news then will lead to the break, either to the either side, either to the downside or to the upside. Now definitely break even. And what we had there, and here what I wrote this, we tapped into the higher time frame zone, swept the London Open, the Asian lows, and before the news made this manipulative move to the downside, so expecting some upside. It happened, but no entries there. From here probably didn't want to enter. Yeah, expecting reaccumulation and further upside. So basically this situation is basically the same that I expect. So this move is what I expected here. So I expected reaccumulation and continuation, but my idea at this point never found confirmation, because this move, if the price wanted to continue, had basically to break this high. But you see, it never happened, and then the price stuck. News, tap into the zone. So for me, there was no entries. Maybe if you like really want to catch, you see some inside structure build, but nothing for me. This is a bit too late. Yeah, and basically that's all I think. Then it's stuck in a range. Oh no, it then went to the downside. Yeah, mitigated this zone from 15 minutes, from 1 hour, and this is just an entry example. I will not even discuss it, so it's just I made for myself, so this was not an entry. And yeah, basically this was my week. Again, pretty long review, but we discussed how the price moved in range, discussed what we can expect after the breaks, how the management can look like, and looked through a lot of patterns. Again, the trading in this was pretty hard, but managed to pull something out from it. And we'll look into the next week. During the next week, I would like to have more entries with the build ups, so I will probably try not to catch these early entries and just wait for a better entries, because during previous months I had some nice winners, but a lot of tries to enter earlier, and it usually doesn't help. It gives a lot of losers, break evens, and then you just have your winner after this in the later stages. So does it make sense to try to enter earlier? Okay, see you next week then.